Okay, we're up to Ayin Beis Amid Beis. Ayin Beis Amid Beis. We saw machlokus between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda vis-a-vis an Isha and an androgynous, right? Vis-a-vis an Isha and androgynous. Vis-a-vis the halacha, or 1 second, of what? Of an oral. This is regarding the halacha of paraduma. Regarding the halacha paraduma, can they go ahead and be mekadesh the paraduma? So Tanakama said that an oral is possible, but an androgynous and an isha would be permitted. Rabbi Yehuda said that an androgynous would be possible, right? Because an androgynous is like an isha. So what's this machloikis? Whether an androgynous or an isha, let's put them. An isha can go ahead and do the kiddush, the act of putting the afer of the paraduma with the water together. For Azla Tamayu, so we are on Ayin Beis, Amid Beis. We are a few lines up. How many? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 10 lines up. For Azla Tamayu, Titania. Hakol Kshem Lekadesh. All akasherim, even an isha and an androgynous would be kosher. They would be permitted to go ahead and mix the paraduma. Kiddush here refers to taking the afer of the water and mixing it with the water. Chutz mi cheresh shayt v'katan, with the exception of a cheresh shayt v'katan. Rabbi Yehuda machshe v'katan, who poisel b'isha v'androgynous. We have machloikis, 2 machloikis, and by katan, which will leave, and the machloikis in Gittin, isha and androgynous, which is the thrust of the limit over here. So the Tanakama says they could, and Rabbi Yehuda says they can't. My time in the Rabbanan that they could. Now, in the parsha of, do I have a chumash here? Just there's one in the back there. Chumash. Yeah, Librius. Thank you. So in the parsha of Paraduma, which is the source, I'll just read to you a few psukim in Parshas, the beginning of Parshas Chukas. It says, the one who burns the paraduma, he should wash his clothing. He goes to the mikvah, and he's at full yom. V'asaf, keyword guys, v'asaf, lashon yachid, and he asaf ish tahar es efa para. The person who goes ahead and gathers the efa para must be tahar. He leaves outside the machne, b'makam tahar. Okay, and then the pasuk says later on. So it goes. That's the actual creation of the paraduma. Now, it says the lachul atame may afas reifas hachatos, and the lachul atame they not he they should take for the tame from the ashes of the reifas hachatos v'nasan loshin yachid of a male, not v'nasna v'nasan alav mayim chaim el keli. So we begin asaf is a yachid. We go to that's the act of gathering. Asifa is gathering. The act of taking the actual water is the lashon of Rabbim, and V'nasan is and putting the mayim. The act of kiddush seems to be a male. Okay, so now with that in mind, says the Gemara. Again, we have machlokas whether the mixing the kiddush can be done. Tanakama says can be done through a female. Says that an androgynous says Rabbi Yehuda cannot. Okay, says the Gemara. The Tanya kol kshem l'kadosh chutz l'chereshayt v'kadon Rabbi Yehuda machshe v'kadon u'paisel b'isha. My time of the Rabbanan and the Chsiv. It says v'lachu latamei. And they should take for the tamei me'afes reifas achatos. Now hanuch the pasli be'asifa psulim b'kiddush. Those that are puzzled to go ahead and gather it together are puzzled to do kiddush. Hanuch the ksherim be'asifa ksherim b'kiddush. And the one that is kosher to do asifa is kosher to do kiddush. So an isha, pashtus and isha can gather it together. So if an isha can gather it together, therefore v'lakhu she can go ahead and put it together. Just Anisha can gather it. So when it comes to mixing it with the water, Anisha can do it as well. We make it together, Hatalia, one dependent upon the other. Those who are in the ballpark of gathering or in the ballpark of mixing. Rabbi Yehuda Imkain, if that's the case, that they're in the same ballpark, then Nema Bahaikra, it should say Velakach. Similar guys, if you want to make the tzushtel between gathering and putting it together, like va'asaf, be consistent. Va'asaf singular, v'lokach singular. Why did you go from va'asaf to a lashon singular yachid to v'lochu a lashon of rabbin? If you're telling me it's the same, why are you going ahead and switching the plurality of it? Says the Gemara. So my v'lochu, what does v'lochu mean? Even those that are puzzle to go ahead, what? And gather like a cotton, hasam kishera. Therefore, by cotton, Rabbi Yehuda was machshir a cotton. For Asaf, he says the one v'lakhu is more inclusive. So even though a cotton would be puzzled to do a sifa of gathering it together, he would be permitted to go ahead and be mekadesh it and put it in the water, right? So it says the Gemara, ihachi ishanami. If that's the case, if those, in other words, if you're being more expansive, right? Why can't a woman go ahead and do it? You're even more inclusive than the Tanakama. The Tanakama excluded the cotton from mixing it. You're including the cotton from mixing it. Yet you're excluding an Isha. But why? If a lachu is a more inclusive term, you should also include an Isha, that an Isha should be able to go ahead and be magdish it. On that it says, what's the lashon? V'nasan alav mayim chayim al keli. V'nasan is a lashon of what? V'loy v'nasna. V'nasan, and he'll put v'loy v'nasna, and not she'll put. So therefore he excludes an isha from the v'nasan. For Rabbanon, what about the Rabbi Yehuda's raya? L'chayre it says v'nasan, doesn't say v'nasna. Rabbanon ikasiv v'lokach v'nasan. If it would have said v'lokach v'nasan, and that you want to include, in other words, lashon singular, of course. Havamina shakol chad v'yoev chad. One person, one would take, and one would give. Because Rachman v'lachu, therefore, what it can be the same person. Because Rachman v'lachu v'nasnu havamina the state tray of v'yoev tray. It has to be two people. Because Rachman v'lachu v'nasnu. I feel a shakli tray. Even if two people v'yoev chad gives and one person does it, puts it on. Okay, so that's the machlokes. Okay, now just to conclude. So we have machlokes based upon v'nasa v'nasnan of v'laka would be the din of a cotton, and v'nasa with the din of the isha. The kind of comment not dashning it and the Shimon dashning it. Now there are other psukim there, but just want to finish off. One of the huge chidushim of paraduma we know is that a tful yom can do it. A tful yom can do it. So why is that? Because it says v'hiza hator alatame. Now it says v'hiza hator alatame. And the pure person should sprinkle on the tamei person. The pure person is kind of a funny lashon. It should just say v'hizer ala tamei. What are you saying the tahar? If he's tahar, he's tahar. Don't say anything. V'hizer atar ala tamei. So look at Rashi, guys. Look at the top Rashi on Omen Aleph. Tahar shetiharti lecha kan, that you matarim for this din mechalshu tamei l'davar acher. Mashma is tamei for something else. Vis-a-vis para aduma, he's tahar. But vis-a-vis other halachas, he's not. Kigoin tful yoim shetame litruma. For example, tful yoim goes to the mikvah. He's tar for certain things, but he's tame for what? For truma. So very geschmack. V'hiza hatar, even if it's a tful yoim ala tame. And this is where the big thing with the tzedaikim came in. This is why they were metama. The kohen who was Isaac with this, who would go ahead and spritz it, they would go be metama that person to make him a tful yoim. Be metama him and go put him in a mikvah to go. Whether exactly they did or didn't, there's a taisus in the beginning of Yuma that discusses whether they actually did do it or they didn't do it. L'chol hapachas, this is where we get on to the chumis we spoke out. Okay, and this is nothing to do with our sugya. It just, since we brought in the paraduma for the machlokes by whether isha could do it, so we're finishing it off. V'hizar tola tamei, tar machalshu tamei. It says tar over here, machalshu is tamei in another place. Liman al tful yoim. This is a limit at a tful yoim. Someone goes to the mikvah and is waiting for erev shemesh. Shekasha b'para. Whose what is kasha b'para? Okay, and now we're getting back to our shalos. We're in the sugya. The name of this parak is oral. We got into the whole thing, but when an oral can eat truma, by machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer, Taishav Sacha from Pesach, Rabbi Akiva, the Chiddush yesterday, that Tomei, that the oral's Tomei, because he learns it from the pasuk that deals with Toma, ish, right? Ki yev zerua. So now we get back into more shalos. So here's a shalo. Boy, me name Rav Sheshes. Oral ma'u b'maisa. Now, guys, anytime it says maisa in the Gemara, it generally almost always means maisa sheni. It generally almost means maisa sheni. Why? Because Meiser Rishon is what is chulin, except according to Rabbi Meir. Meiser Rishon is chulin; it belongs to the Levi. Okay, I'm just doing this for there's somebody here who wants to hear this. We're going to go over it again. There's a say. What's the seder of Hafashas Trumas and Meiser? There's a certain seder, right? That from the crop you separate something called Truma Gedoyla. It goes to the Kohen. Every year, in addition, you separate Trumas Meiser Rishon. It's Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. Every year you separate what? Meiser Rishon. That goes to the Levi. From that Meiser Rishon, the Levi separates something called a tenth. It's called Trumas Meiser, and he gives it to the Kohen. That has a din of Truma. You bechay misa b'dei shamayim if you ate that as well. Even though the Meiser Rishon what is chulin. Okay. In the first year, second year, fourth year, and fifth year of the Shemitah of the Shemitah cycle, you would give Meiser Sheni. It'd have to be taken up to Yerushalayim. If you don't, you can be paid it and bring the coins up to Yerushalayim. In the third year and the sixth year, in lieu of Meiser Sheni, you give Meiser Ani. That's the given of the cycle. Good. So now we know in oral Keni Truma. What about Meiser Sheni? Meiser Sheni does have a bit of kedusha. It requires achil in Yerushalayim, right? You can't use it to buy an animal for chulin, for carbon. It has certain kodesh. So now, what's the halacha? Boy minim Rav Sheshes. Oral mal b'meiser. What's the din of an oral meiser sheni? Ki heichi diyolav pesach mi meiser. Just like you learn pesach from meiser, linyan aninis. Now, how do you know that an onen can't eat from the carbon pesach, fellas? It doesn't say it in Parshas Bo. If you go to Parshas Bo, it does no mention whatsoever of an oinen being able to eat from the carbon pesach. We know we can't. You learn it out where from? You learn it out from Maisa. Because when the Vidui Maisas in the Parshas Kisov, it says, I did not eat it what? I did not eat it. I never ate it when I was, so that you see that he can't eat it. And so therefore, so we know that we learn out Pesach from Maisa, the Inyan Aninish, just like an Oinen's potter, an Oinen can eat Meiser, so too an Oinen can eat the Garden Pesach. How about Yoilef Nami Meiser mi Pesach Linyan Arelis? Can I learn out Meiser from Pesach Linyan Arelis? Meaning, just like by Pesach, where it says openly an oral can't eat from the Garden Pesach, I'll learn out that an Oinen can't. I'll learn out that an oral can't eat Meiser. Again, Aninis, I'm learning from Pesach from Meiser. Can I learn out Meiser from Pesach? Just like an oral is out of the ballpark by Pesach, he's out of the ballpark by Meiser. That an oral can't eat Meiser. Now, what would the problem? Dilma chomer mikal yolif, a chomer Pesach, which is more chomer. Sicha Kotchim is more chomer than Meiser. Mikal from Meiser. I could learn out the din of Aninis. But Yolif Kal Mechomer Lo Yolif. But to be able to learn out Meiser in Arla from something that's more chomer, Lo Yolif. Now, this is such a why? What kind of havmin is that you should be able to learn out a kal from a chomer? Kal v'chomer means kal v'chomer, a kal from a chomer. Madach the din by what is in the kal is like this. Certainly the chomer is like that, but the opposite. So what's the Gemara Shaila? So look at Taisus. Look at Taisus. What is the Shaila over here that you have a havamina? You should be able to learn out what? You should be able to learn out Meiser from Pesach and say that what that an old zasa. Kal v'chomer yolif. Timer. Mimi boile. Pshita. The Hechinelev, Kal Mechomer. Where'd you ever find, guys? Ask any baby, ask any kid in kiddie school. There's no way you're learning out what. What are you going to say? Madach, a four-legged chair can stand. Certainly, a three-legged chair can stand. And I remember Rabbi. That's the one thing where I remember. Rabbi says the Kal v'chomer. If a three-legged chair can stand, certainly a four-legged. It's the only thing I learned in yeshiva. Okay, so let's go the opposite way. Madach, what a four can, a three can makes no sense, right? No. V'yesh leimar the mesafkalahu haydi yolaf pesach mimaiser I b'gzei reshava de mimenu yolaf. So then yalfina nami maiser mi pesach. Afagav davi kal mechomer. Pirish. If it's a gzei reshava, guys, if it's a gzei reshava, we do not then make distinctions of the severity of the limud. We just find we have a commonality in the words. It says mimenu by carbon pesach. It says mimenu by meiser. So memela, whatever halach it says by one, we'll say by the other. So just like by mimenu is by meiser, and the aninas can't eat meiser, I'll say the carbon pesach. Einan also can't eat carbon pesach. And if an oral can't eat the carbon pesach, I'll say an oral can't eat meiser because I want more common than the other. We don't care. It's k'ser shava. Oy b'kal v'chomer yalaf lei. Right? Or do I learn that from a kal v'chomer v'loy b'gzeres shava? So that would be the shaila over here, guys. Very geschmack shaila, guys. If it's a din in a gzeres shava, I then will be able to learn out Maisa from Pesach and say just like Pesach and Oral's out of the ballpark, so the by Maisa is out of the ballpark. But if it's a Kal V'Chomer, then no, I'm only limited to learning Pesach from Maisa in Yananinis. I would not be able to learn out the other way. That's the Gemara Shaila. Let's start them. Very nice. Back in the Gemara. So Amalu, so he told him, Reb Sheshes told the person who asked the Shaila, Tinisua, you learned it. Okay, we're going to go through the first two Mishnayos in Masechta Bikurim. This is, guys, packed of Yedias. Tonight is just a very Yedias packed night. Of Yedias, many of them you know, and some you may not. Hatruma v'Bikurim. Now, we're saying the following: Truma and Bikurim have chumas over Maisa. Okay, so there's chumas that are innate by Truma and Bikurim over Maisa Sheni. What are the chumas that Truma and Bikurim have that Maisa doesn't? Hatruma v'Bikurim chayim olav Misa. If you eat truma betuma, or not betuma, if you're a zar, if you eat bikurim has the same din as truma. It's called trumas yadcha. So you'd also v'choimish. If you eat b'shogeg, you be chayev a choimish. Now, even though maisa you do, there's a choimish by maisa. That's only in your pidyon, but not to go ahead and if you eat it. The asurim lezarim, it's also for a zar. This is agav the Mishnah in the Seif of the Mishnah. We say this. The hein nichsei kayin, both truma and bikurim are the money of the kayin. He can be mekadesh nisha with it. It's like chulin by him. Mashein came Maisa Sheni, guys, is not your money. We're going like according to Rabbi, it's not your money. For oila ba'achas umeya, when it comes to halachas tarubis. Now, fellas, we learned a little bit tarubis. Midaraisa, batal baroiv. 2-to-1 ratio, you're out. Shishim, right? Not nice and tam. Shishim. By Arla, 1 in 200. By Bikurim and Truma, the ratio is going to be 100-to-1. Mashenke Maisa, Sheni would be 2-to-1 or Midaraisa or 60-to-1. So these are the commonalities that Truma and Bikurim have vis-a-vis Maisa. Right. V'tu'unim rechitzas yadayim. To touch truma or bikurim, you have to wash your hands because we would guys on your hands and Masechta Shabbos. They yadayim ashniyah saying, and they can be mitama truma to the level of a shlishi. Good. Masha'en kain what? Masha'en kain ma'aser sheni not. The herav shemesh. If you're tummy, you have to wait herav shemesh, but for ma'aser you don't have to wait. So hari ela b'truma bikurim masha'en kain b'ma'aser. All of these are by truma, with not b'ma'aser. Now, what's a shaila, guys? A shaila is, can an oral eat what? Maisa. Now, if an oral could eat Maisa, why don't you include it now in this list? Truma and Bikurim, the oral will not be able to eat, but he would be able to eat Maisa Sheni. When it's not included in the list, it must be why? Because he can't. And so let's bring a raya to the Shaila, right? That what an oral cannot eat. Because if an oral could eat, it would be listed as one of the distinctions that Bikurim and Truma have vis-a-vis what? Maisa Sheni. And if you could eat truma, if you could eat an oral could eat maisa, nisni oral asa behen, my orals be asa in bikurim and truma, mashenkin be maisa be muta. So l'chara you have a raya that what that he it's asa. Says Gemara, you have no raya. Tana b'shayir. We have what he learned things and he left out certain things. Now the rule is if he leaves something out, if there's only one thing, he won't leave it out. 2 things you'll leave out. So if you're telling me he left out what? It could be oral's asati Maisa Sheni, but he left it out. It must be what else did he leave out? So we have to find what else did he leave out. So it says Tana b'shayir. Uma shayir dahai shayir. What did he leave out aside from this? Why did he leave out that he also left this out? It says the more shayir the Katani Seifa. He learned this is the Mishnah base there, Masechta Bikurim. Yesh b'maisa ubikurim. Now, guys, we're saying what Maisa and Bikurim have that Truma doesn't. Good. Now we're saying the things that commonality between Maisa and Bikurim that Truma doesn't have. Masha'en came b'Truma. What is that? Shamaisa b'Bikurim tu'unim habas makran. Both have to be brought up to the base of Mikdash. Maisa Sheni Yerushalayim Bikurim in the base of Mikdash proper. Masha'en came what? Truma. Truma can be eaten anywhere. Betunas vidoi. Both bikurim, you read the kriya of Rami David Avi when you bring it up, and by Maisu you have the vidoi Maisus in the third year and the sixth year when you get rid of them from your house. For asal oinain, and both bikurim and Maisa are asa to an oinain. Truma, guys, we said we said that the last blot that an oinain can eat truma, but an oinain cannot eat bikurim. It cannot eat what? Cannot eat Maisa. Reb Shimon Mata, he says you could eat bikurim. Could in fact an oinain could eat bikurim. Okay. Bottom line is we have what? We have differences. The chayavim bibir, and you have to both be mavar them. You have to get rid of them. Both if they're around in your possession, you're 3 or 6, you have to get rid of them. The chayavim bir, Reb Shimon Paita by bikurim. There's no din of getting rid of it. V'ilu asal levar mehen. V'ilu these also asal levar mehen bituma. In other words, if you would go ahead, right? If you would go ahead and you can't have anah when you're getting rid of them. If you have tami dika bikurim or tami dika maisa, you have to get rid of them, but you can't have anah. If you have tami dika shemen of truma, you could use it as a fuel. You could use it as a fuel, right? So that's a chumrah that bikurim and maisa have over what? Have over truma. Amid base. But oichlin bitumas atzman loika, right? If someone goes ahead and eats, right? Eats if he's tahar, but the food is tamei. So if it's tamei dika bikurim, guys, and it's tamei dika meiser, then you would get malchus. Masha enkim b'truma, you would not get malchus. If you ate truma, that's tamei. That the truma itself is tamei. Alma, what do you see? Tana b'shaya. You see, left out all these differences, right? The male of what? Who adin Indian oral, right? We left out that fact that it's mutar b'achila, but in fact it is. So therefore, right now, what happens? You wanted to bring a raya. We all embrace the shaila. You wanted to bring a raya from the fact that it's not on the list, of, right? If it was, you should go ahead and say that truma and bikurim, the truma and bikurim and oral couldn't eat, but Maisa you could eat. Kenzain, you could eat it, but that been listed is because of other reasons. But you haven't, I just destroyed your raya. So the Gemara now is going to go ahead and go over some of the things we just mentioned, like Omamar, right? Basically, we said certain things. Let's go over them. Omamar. It's very interesting. I just said it. Look, see the aleph in the back. Look at the back, guys. Taner Shaya, Omamar. The Bach puts in the words Omamar because we're going back over the Brisa. So Rav Shimon, we had a machlokes, right? Rav Shimon argued in 2 cases. Rav Shimon argued vis-a-vis the halacha of he permitted. Rav Shimon said that an oinin. No, 1 second. I got to make sure I don't want to tell you wrong shot. An oinin, right? An oinin could eat a bikurim, and he said an oinin's patavat from beer in bikurim. There's no din of beer by bikurim. Okay, says the Gemara. Amamar basurin laoinin. It's also to an oinin. The bikurim and ma'aser are also to an oinin. Rav Shimon Mata. He said bikurim is muta. Now minolaha. How do you know this? Minolaha. How do you know this? The chsiv, it says. Okay, now, this is a very important pasuk. It's pasuk says, you're not able to eat in your gates. Maisa degoncha. It's pasuk maisa sheni. B'siroishcha b'yitzarecha. U'b'chayres b'karcha. B'char you can't eat. B'tzaynecha. B'chol nedarecha any neder asher tidor. V'nid vaysecha. Those are karbanis. And you cannot eat shumas yadecha. Now, shumas yadecha is what is bikurim. Shumas yadecha is bikurim. So we begin the parsha, the pasuk, by saying Ma'aseh lesucha lecha b'sharecha Ma'aseh degancha, and we conclude by saying what? Shumas yadcha. So we've established a relationship between bikurim and Ma'aseh from the same pasuk. The first part of the pasuk speaking about Ma'aseh, the latter part of the pasuk speaking about bikurim. So we've established a relationship between bikurim and Maisa. Now, what does it say? And we conclude with Shumas Yadcha. Shumas Yadcha, as we just mentioned, Shumas Yadcha is bikurim. The iskish bikurim lemaisa. We make a hekish between bikurim and Maisa. My Maisa asal oinin Just like Maisis as to an einan, af bikurim asa lo'einin. So too what? Bikurim be asa to an einan. That's how the Tanakhama knows that bikurim is asa to an einan. Rav Shimon says it's mutter to an einan. Why? Truma karina rachmana. Ma truma muteris lo'einin, af bikurim mutter lo'einin. So even though you have a hekesh in the pasuk, Rav Shimon says, 1 second, we call him bikurim truma siyatcha. Once we call it truma, it's going to go into the pasuk. V'chol zol yochal by v'chol zar b'zaras and yom of lebeninas that we had earlier. Okay, so that's the first source for the argument whether an oinen can eat what, an oinen can eat maisa or not. According to the Tanakhama, the hekesh to maisa, and just like maisa, and hekesh to bikurim, just like maisa, you can't eat baninas. So to bikurim, you can't eat baninas. Rav Shimon says that since bikurim is called shumas yadcha, just like truma, you could eat baninas, so too bikurim, you keep baninas. The second machlokes was the chiyuv of beer removal. Rav Shimon says there's no din of beer of removal of bikurim. Why not? Says the Gemara. The chayavim bebeer, yichayiv bikurim, yichayivim beer. Rav Shimon poita, Rav Shimon be pata, right? Bikurim. He says mar makish, umar loy makish. The Tanakhama makes the hekesh, so let's extend it. Just like there's a din of beer meiser, there's a din of beer bikurim. The beginning of the pasuk says meiser de gancha. The end of the pasuk says chumas yadcha. Good. And Rav Shimon does not make the hekesh. Therefore, chumas yadcha would not require beer. Umar loy makish. The Mishnah had said in Bikurim, you can't go ahead by Bikurim and Meiser. You have enough from them when you get rid of them. The Oichlin betumas atzmon loika, and anyone eats them, you get malchus. Minolan, how do you know this? The Tanya of Shimon Aimer. It says leBa'arti. Okay, this is the parsha by Vidui Meiser. Layachalti be'oni. I didn't eat it ba'aninus mimenu. Laybe'arti mimenu betamei. And I did not get rid of it in Tumah. When Asati mena lemeis, Shemati b'kol Hashem alakoi, Asisi kol Hashem tzivusani. Okay, that's what it says. Now, leiba'ati mimenu b'tamei. What does that mean? Now, there's two possibilities, two types of Tumah: the object's Tumah and his Tamei. Leiba'ati mimenu b'tamei, bein shani tamei v'hu tahar. Whether I am Tamei and it was tahar, bein shani tahar, I'm tahar v'hu tamei. I did not go ahead, Rod, and get rid of it. The Heichem Musar alachilas. Now it says loy ba'arti is not a lav. That's what it's saying. I didn't do it. It's not a lav in the Torah. The Heichem Musar, guys. When you get malchus, obviously it has to be ashara. You have to get. You need to get an ashara. So where in the Torah does it say that this din of Rod of now there's two din? You need two din over here. You need one din whether you're tamei, a second din if you're tar and it's tamei. Good. Where's the lav for it's tamei and you're tar? That's going to be the limit, says the Gemara. So where are you warned about eating it when it's tamei? So he says Eini Yadeya. I don't know openly. I don't know the pasuk for it. Tumas aguf behedikasid. Now, however, tumas aguf meaning if you're tamei, obviously Rabbi Shimon does know it. What does it say? Nefesh hashetiga boy, the tamei ado arev, lo yochel min hakachim ki im rachatz b'sara b'mayim. You can't eat from kachim. Meaning truma, if less what is rachatz b'sar b'mayim. So what do you mean v'lo yadati? Obviously, it's open that if you're b'tumas aguf, you're going to get malchus. Here's the shayla: tumas atzbay minayin. How do you know the tumah itself? Meaning you're tahar, but the object. You're telling me that bikurim and ma'aser, if it's tumah, you're going to get malchus. How do you know tumas atzmai? If the bikurim and the ma'aser are tumah, how do you know you're going to get malchus if you're tahar and they're tumah? So here's the pasuk. It says, now, let's establish first, when it's speaking about bisharecha, we're speaking about meiser. You cannot eat bisharecha, you can't eat bisharecha, meiser de goncha. Meaning, means where you live, guys. In your hometown, you can't eat maisa. What do you got to do with the maisa? You got to bring it to Yerushalayim. Got to bring it to Yerushalayim. You can't eat it b'sharecha. You got to bring it to Yerushalayim. Now, there's something called psuli mikdashim, fellas. That's a carbon that gets a mum. A carbon that gets a mum. You can't bring it as a carbon. You redeem it. It has certain churmis. You can't work it. You can't use you can't use eggs. If you can't use milk, but you could eat it. Where could you eat it? Bisharecha tachlenu. Bisharecha, you could eat it. Hatami v'atar yachtav. The tame and the tar could eat it. Katzvi v'chayol, like a chaya, like a tzvi and an ayol, not an ayil. An ayil is a behema. Ayol is a wild animal. So these are wild animals. There's no, they're not kachim. They're not kachim. We're contrasting this animal, which was one time you bring as a carbon. We're contrasting. You could eat it like a tzvi v'ayol. You could eat it with a person that's tame. Meaning there is no what? There is no warning of tumah regarding psulei mikdashim. Even if it's tame, it's not a problem. Good. So what's the Tana debate Rabbi Shmuel? Afilu tami v'tar oichlan al shulchan echad b'kaira achas ve'ena chosheshen v'kamer achmana hu da'amal da'mati l'cha hasam b'sharecha tachlenu hacha le'seicha. Okay, here's the limit, guys. Outside. We have two foods. One that's described you cannot eat b'sharecha, and one that's described you could eat b'sharecha. The one that is described as you can't eat b'sharecha, meaning you can't eat in Brooklyn, is Ma'aser Sheni. The one that's described that you could eat in Brooklyn is an animal that got a mum and you can't bring it as a carbon. Regarding the animal that you could eat in Brooklyn, what does it say? We don't care about tumah. You could eat it. So even if this animal that was a carbon is now tameh, eat it, no problem. However, that's because that's the thing you could eat b'sharecha. What about the stuff that you can't eat b'sharecha? Then the limud of achila is not stated b'tumah. There, you have to be makbid on not eating it b'tumah. What's b'sharecha? You don't have to be makbid. But leisucha l'sharecha, the food that you can't eat in Brooklyn, then you have to be makbid on its state of tumah. And that's the source for what? Tumis atzmai, where the object of self is tameh. One more time. We have to create a lav, not for the person, that's an open pasuk. We have to create a lav where the food itself is tameh. Good? We're doing that by means of going to Pashas Re'eh and comparing something that could be eaten anywhere versus something that has to be eaten in a certain place. Let's use Brooklyn or Yerushalayim. So you could eat a tameh, a carbon, whether it's tar or tameh, and it's not a carbon anymore. It was once upon a time a carbon, but now it's not anymore because it has a mum. You could eat it in tumah. And where does it say that? B'sharecha. However, there's something that you're not able to eat b'sharecha, that you can't eat in that locale. There is a hakpada on the tumah. What can't you eat in that locale? Maisa, right? Maisa. And we have a hekesh between Maisa and Bikurim, right? So now we've established, just like Maisa, you can't eat if it's tameh, because it says you can't eat it b'sharecha, where tumah is stated. And Bikurim, we have the hekesh of what? Of Maisa to Trumas Yotcha Bikurim, that we created din that you cannot eat them what? The Tumas Atzman. Very gishmak. Okay, this is all explanation. We didn't get to the shaila yet about an oral eating Maisa. You know, what happened, we digressed because we brought that as a raya. We just digressed to explain the whole thing. We're going to have to get back to the original shaila, which is can you or can't you? Two dots. Mashen came with truma, meaning truma, right? Mashen came with truma, that pasha, that truma, you could eat with its tumas atzman, or you won't get malchus for it, guys. You won't get malchus, it said. Mashen came with truma, you will not get malchus. No, excuse me. That truma, you're able to go ahead and have ano when you get rid of it. That truma, when you're able to have ano when you get rid of it. In other words, if you have shemen of bikurim, you can't use it as a fuel source. If you have shemen of ma'aser sheni, you can't use it as a fuel source. If you have shemen and truma, you could use it as a fuel source, right? So how do you know that? Minola. How do you know that? Mashen came with truma minolan. The pasuk says by ma'aser it says lo yibarti mimenu b'tamei. Now mimenu is you might remember yesterday or 2 days ago. Mimenu is a miut, right? Mimenu. Why do we learn out from the mimenu? Mimenu yetem mimenu from Maisa, you can't go ahead and have enough from the beer with its removal. Avalat mavish shemen shel truma shenitma. But a truma of that became tamei, shemen of truma tamei, you in fact could have enough. Fred Gemara ve'ema mimenu yatem aver avalat mavish shemen shel kaidesh shenitma. Why do you jump to truma? Why don't you go to kachim? Let's say you have shemen of a mincha that became tamei. Maybe over there you could have enough from that. Why do you say the shemen of truma you could have enough from? Maybe you could have the shemen from kodesh, but you can't have enough from truma. It says we're lav kal b'chaymahu. You should be able to go ahead and have enough from it. It says if you're going ahead and jumping to kachim, truma nami kal b'chaymahu. You get the same kal b'chayma truma, right? It's the same kal b'chayma because truma is certainly more chamer than ma'isa. It says I haksiv mimenu. You have a miyot. So that's the question. Umar royas. So guys, we have a choice. We can apply the miyot to truma or the miyot to kachim. Guys, we can apply the miyot. We've had this limud recently, right? Ma royas. What did you? Ma royas means you had an option. You know, I always say giving your druthers, right? Giving your druthers. What are we saying? Truma you could have enough from, but kachim you can't. Why? Why not just say kachim you can have enough from truma you can't? Why? Why did the mimenu? I have a miyot. Why did I opt to apply the mimenu to truma rather than to kachim? Okay, so now we're going to have a list. Okay, here's some ideas, guys. Mistaber kodesh aloy memamtinon. Mistaber kodesh we're not going to be memayet from having enough from that you can't have enough. Shekain pay pin kaches. The pay stands for pigel. The pigel is the din is the machshava that you have one of the four avodas adam. Be in the shchita, the kabbalah, the ilacha, the srika, you have a machshav of chutz l'makam or chutz l'zman. And would render that whether, depending on whether it's chutz l'makam, it would be malchus. If you eat it, chutz l'zman will be karis. Nicer, leaving over the carbon after it's man, carbon, right? It has a shame carbon on it. What was that? Alacha, we had shame carbon. We said something, I forgot what. 1 second. Carbon. Oh, you have to bring it inside. You have to bring it inside the Beis Hamikdash. Me'ila. There's a din of before you do the mitzvah, you have to bring. If you had enough of it, you'd have to go ahead and pay keren v'chaimish and bring a carbon asham, karis. By kachim, there's a din of karis. For also la'aynin, it's also for an aynin to kachim. So therefore, it makes a lot of sense to apply if we're going to be mamayit something. It's kachim. It says truma. Let's not be mamayit truma. Let's say truma you won't be able to have enough from. Shekei machpaz. What does machpaz stand for? Misa, you pay misa de shemayim. Ches, you pay a chaimish for eating it b'shogeg. Pay vainly pidyon, as opposed to kachim, there is pidyon. And zayin basur l'zarim. It's also to zarim. Mashenkein kachim. Certain kabbanas can be eaten by a zar. Nonetheless, hanech defishin. Nonetheless, there's more of a reason. The list for kachim is more severe than the list of truma. Therefore, the menu, if I'm going to apply a miyat, I'm going to say the miyat is the truma. That truma you could have enough from rather than kachim. Levi is saying makaras adifa. Karas is mochamed and misa b'yei shemayim, which it is, and therefore I would go ahead and say that. Okay. Now let's continue on. We said if you eat tumas atzman, you're going to get malchus. In other words, if it is tamei by bikurim and maisa, if it's tamei, you're going to get malchus, but you're not going to get malchus if it's trumas tamei. You're tahar, right? You're tahar, but on the other hand, but this is tamei. So we said by bikurim if it's tamei, by maisa if it's tamei, you're going to get what? You're going to get malchus. Mashenkein if it's truma, you won't get malchus. Says the Gemara, Mashenkein the truma milkahu d'lalaki, you don't get malchus. But it's asati truma if it's tamei. Minalan, how do you know it's asati to truma if it's tamei? Amakra, it says bisharecha teichlenu. It says in your gates you should eat it. Lezeh v'loy la'acher, right? Lezeh bisharecha teichlenu, right? Means it's referring bisharecha teichlenu. You should eat it in your sha'arim. Whose phone is that? Harold's your phone? B'sharecha techlenu. What's the pasuk going on? It's speaking about, it's speaking about Psul Makdashim, right? B'sharecha techlenu katziv ayal. It's speaking about Psul Makdashim, and that was the pasuk that said you could eat bituma, right? Good. So it says no. The Psul Makdashim, it says what? Psul Makdashim, guys, it says. You can eat the psul mekdoshim if it's tamei. Again, remember we said only this and not something else. So therefore, what's the something else? It must be what? Truma. So you're not going to get malchus. This is a negative you hear from a positive. Guys, what's the positive? You're able to eat if it's tamei psulim mikdashim. Mechlal, you're not able to eat truma if it's tamei. So that's you're hearing a negative from the truma, from the positive of able to eat what? Able to eat psulim mikdashim. We have a rule: lav hagol mechal asay is an asay, so you won't get malchus. So that's how you know truma. That's tamei itself. You don't get malchus. For lav mechal asay, Rav Ashi. Says Rav Ashi. Now Rav Ashi is going back all the way back to the beginning. Fellas, we went back to the beginning. We asked if an oral was able to go ahead and eat maisa, why wasn't it included in the list? It must be he's not able to eat. So we said Tana B'Shaya. Where did we go to Mishaya? We went to Mishnah Beis, the next Mishnah. Rav Ashi is saying, even in the Mishnah itself, when you're going ahead and saying Truma and Maisa versus Truma and Bikurim versus Maisa, in the latter case, we're in Maisa and Bikurim versus Truma. In the first case, it was Truma and Bikurim versus Maisa. Even in the first Mishnah, I have something left out. I have something left out that it could have left out. Rav Ashi, Meresha Nami, from the Resha as well, going back to the beginning of Shir. Shamat Mina, we hear that what? That you have no raya from the Brisa that what? That an oral's asab in Maisa Sheni. The Tanya, Vishayr, with the Tana Vishayr, with the Loikitani, V'noigin Bishar Sheni Shavua. Okay, it's Noig, Truma and Bikurim, guys. What years of the Shemitah cycle are Truma Noig? Every single one. What year of Bikurim is what year of the Shemitah cycle? Every single one. Ma'aser Sheni is not Noig right in years 3 and 6, right? So therefore, Tana V'Shaya, I have another difference, right? And that difference was in the Truma Bikurim versus Maisa. So you don't have to go to Mishnah Beis. Even in Mishnah Aleph, I left out something. So Ken Zayin and Oral is mutter to eat Ma'aser Sheni. It's not included in the list. You know why? Because Tana V'Shaya. You left out that, and I left off also the fact that what? That the Truma Bikurim are the year round, all 6 years of the cycle, and this is only not all the years of the cycle. There's no pidyon. Ma'aser Sheni, you can be paid by Truma and Bikurim. There's no pidyon. Ma'ashen can be Ma'aser. So Shema Mina, l'chayri, you have a very good raya that you have no raya. Okay, let's do a little bit more. Toshma nishtayir b'it sitzin hama'akvenes hamila harizeh ena oichel. If a person goes ahead and when they do it bris milah, they leave over pieces of flesh. Right, we have machlokes whether it's surrounding the atara or the height of the atara, but they're ma'akvenes hamila. You'd be an oral if you didn't go ahead and remove these straps of flesh. You'd be an oral. Shmamina. So Toshman nishtari ben atzis ma'akvenes hamila harizeh ena oichel. You can't eat truma. Loy b'truma, v'loy b'pesach, v'loy b'kachim, v'loy b'maisa. Good. My love maisa dogon. So we can be paishet shaila. Again, we just spent the Blat Gemara proving that you wanted to bring a raya is Nishkan raya, but we didn't forget the shaila. It's still on the table. Can an oral eat Ma'aser Sheni or not? Toshma, guys, you have this. Toshma has always come to answer something. You see the word Toshma over here for a second. So 1 second, we just finished Gemara. We just finished the Gemara to slug up why the first raya is Nishkan raya. Now, Toshma, so let's bring a raya. I'm bringing you a raya that an oral cannot eat maisa, because it says over here, if you left over sitzin akamis amila, that's a buzzword for being an oral, because you didn't finish the meila, and therefore it says what can he eat? He can't eat truma, pesach, kachim, and maisa. My love maisa dagon, so we can place the shaila that an oral is supposed to eat maisa. It says loy maisa behema. Guys, Maisa Behema is you put it in animals in the corral 3 times a year, and the 10th animal that comes out, you put a little red paint on, it's Maisa Behema. As the same din, it's like same as Bechor. If it gets a mum, you can eat it in your backyard. If it doesn't, you bring it to Yerushalayim. No, if it gets a mum, you be paid it. You can't be paid it, but you can't be paid it. But you bring it to Yerushalayim and eat it. It's like a shlamim. Maisa Behema. So it says the Maisa Behema is Hainu Kachim. You already included that in the list. So no, can he truma, can he pesach, can he kachim, right? So if you tell me Maisa Dogan is another carbon, that's kachim. Says the Gemara, no. 1 second, look at the list, guys. Truma, pesach, kachim, Maisa. Good? Isn't pesach a carbon? Yeah. Is kachim a carbon? Yeah. Is Maisa a carbon? Yeah. So why do you learn? You're telling me kachim, everything is included in kachim. You can't say that because obviously Pesach was stated and then kachim was stated. So bishlam Pesach for kachim tzricha, bishlam Pesach for kachim. You have to tell me both din and why. The ton of Pesach, the oral can eat the Pesach mishum. The alis of Pesach ksiva. It's open in the Torah. in Parshas Bo, in Perikid Base. It says an oral can eat from it. Avil kachim, but a regular carbon. A malloy, I'd say an oral could eat from it. Kamash you have to tell me no. Vitana kachim, if you just tell me kachim, have a mean of my kachim Pesach. If you say kachim, I'd say it only means a carbon Pesach. Elamaisa behema lamali. Why do you have to mention Maisa behema? So your kasha is not a kasha. That we said Pesach and kachim, this is tzrichasa. But maybe if you tell me Maisa, it should be included in kachim. It doesn't seem to be anything significant enough to say that the word Maisa means Maisa behema, not Maisa dagan. What do you have to say? Maisa rishon. You're right. It's not Maisa behema. You know what it is? It's not Maisa sheni either. And that's how Shaila is what? Can an oral eat Maisa sheni? You know what it is? It's Maisa rishon. Guys, Maisa rishon is chulin. I told you. Oral can eat chulin, or else he's going to die. Oral can eat chulin. No. Reb Meir, Dama Maisa rishon asl zarim. That Maisa rishon we asat zarim. That's kedusha only be eaten by Levium. So therefore, that's the chiddush that an oral cannot eat Maisa rishon. I will stop over here. Yeah, Bes Hashem, we'll do tomorrow morning.